my co-host, Evan Swords. We're going to be discussing a variety of topics today. We have a couple of casting announcements, as well as discussing episodes 3 and 4 of Daredevil Born Again, the Disney Plus series that is taking us through getting us caught up with Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil. So we're gonna get to that in a second and what our thoughts are in episodes 3 and 4. But before we do that, there were a couple of pieces of casting news that are causing some moments of speculation. So normally, when somebody is cast in a superhero movie or any kind of movie at all, a role is attached to that role. But with the addition of Sadie Sink from Stranger Things, of course, she plays Max in Stranger Things. I was like, I'm going to say her. I was like, she plays, and I was like, oh gosh, what is her name again in the series? It's Max. Of course, she plays Max in Stranger Things, which, Evan, I don't know if you watch Stranger Things, but we should definitely cover that when it comes out later this year.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but yeah, Sadie Sink is a great young actress. There have been a lot of rumors about her in recent weeks, but she has just been cast in Spider-Man 4 in a role in that film, and there's a lot of speculation about who she could be playing. Is she playing a comic-accurate Mary Jane Watson? I'm just going to throw out there, I don't think so. Other things that other characters she could be playing, Gwen Stacy, and there may even be a mutant role that she could be stepping into. But Evan, I want to get your thoughts. Who do you think Sadie Sink is playing in Spider-Man 4, and why is the role being kept such a secret?
Well, I don't know that it's being kept a secret. They just announced it. So maybe they're just, maybe that word got out and it's Marvel and they keep everything under wraps. But the one thing that I thought of immediately when I saw that announcement is I will bet my life it is not Mary Jane. And it's probably not the reason why you think. The reason why I know that it's not Mary Jane is because Tom Holland is in absolute love with his woman, and I promise you that he would never allow a different MJ to come in and then make it so that wasn't the real MJ. There's an interview back in the day, I think this might have been before they were dating, when they were asking, like, who's your favorite MJ over the years? They asked both of them, right? And Zendaya is like, oh, giving like the political answer, and then Tom just immediately is like, Zendaya. Zendaya's the best. Yeah. And she was like, you could tell she's like trying to help him, like, no, like everybody's got their own thing, and he's like, no, Zendaya. And then like every time someone would keep trying to talk, he would just interrupt and say Zendaya. And so for that alone, like, Tom Holland is not stepping onto the studio floor to film a single scene if it means that Zendaya will be disrespected as like not the real MJ.
100%. No, this is, I don't know how this gets around on fandom websites, but the producers have said it a million times that Zendaya is playing their version of MJ. And it was even in Spider-Man No Way Home, they gave her the last name Watson. She's Michelle Jones Watson. That is a clear sign that they believe that she is the MCU's version of MJ. It's a little bit of a different way to get there, but that's who that character is. And that's who, Peter Parker, we all know he always will eventually make it back to MJ, right? But, he's had other loves too. Of course, probably the love of Peter's life in the comics was Gwen Stacy, and she was murdered by Norman Osborn in the comics. Yeah. But so that's definitely a possibility. Sadie Sink could be playing a version of Gwen Stacy.
Wait, and real quick, funny that you say that. Did you see the Marvel Twitter post that was like an animated, like it was like a 2-minute animated clip of that?
Yes.
That kind of, I'm just going to say, little bit of tinfoil hat, right?
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like maybe
Yeah.
they're trying to start to like get the wheel spinning again on Gwen Stacy. Either way, I mean, just in general, I love Sadie Sink as a casting in Spider-Man. I
Yeah.
think whatever they do, I have faith in it. I think they'll be great. She's a fantastic actor, and I mean, she's got a perfect comic book look, right? Like I do
She
think she could
does.
play a young Jean Grey. I mean, she obviously could play a Mary Jane Watson. I think that's a layup. I don't think it's going to
Yeah.
happen, but she
Yeah. Me
absolutely
neither.
could.
Me neither. Yeah.
But she could listen. The long running trend of Kirsten Dunst being a redhead, and then being MJ, and then Emma Watson being a redhead, and then becoming Gwen Stacy, or excuse me, not
Bryce Dallas Howard before that.
Bryce Dallas Howard being a blonde, but being a redhead in real life, and then being Gwen Stacy. Yeah, so like clearly there's precedence, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's a good casting. I'm excited to see.
I do too. And you just touched on it. You just passed over it. So we should just mention it as well. There is a longstanding interview or a longstanding rumor online that Sadie Sink has been eyed for Jean Grey. And I'm going to say something, Evan. I don't hate the idea of the MCU X-Men being introduced in a solo Spider-Man movie. I don't think it's a bad idea at all. And it's like Jean's not really a character that Peter's had a lot of connection to in the comics, but I don't really hate the idea of Jean being the character to kind of bridge that, What do you think of that idea?
I mean, I think in terms of like delivery, it would be a good decision, just because she's like she's very how do I say, diplomatic when it comes to being like a clear mind. And
Yep.
well, I mean, let's just say what it is. There's a bunch of psychopaths on the X-Men, and like
Yes.
they're not probably the best way to introduce them.
Yeah.
Obviously Jean Grey is reserved and intelligent and well spoken. I think that'd be a good way to do it. I don't know that I see that happening yet. We'll talk a little bit more about Daredevil, about how they're slowly starting to inch different aspects, not just X-Men, into the MCU. So I know it's coming, but I just don't know that I see a Jean Grey story or a Jean Grey character in what I imagine the next Spider-Man will be. Now, if Sony gets its way and goes full multiverse, just electric boogaloo, who knows? Maybe that could be the case. But if it is like that street level movie that I think you and I both want, I would imagine that that's not going to be the case.
If it's leaked or somehow revealed that Sadie Sink is playing Jean Grey, our hopes for a street level Spider-Man 4, more traditional Spider-Man 4, are dashed, because that is going to be a big cosmic story if Jean is one of the main supporting characters of that story. Yeah, I know. That's the one thing that I'm a little bit about it, but just in terms of a way, I like, and again, it's taking Peter from, Peter. One of the complaints about the MCU Peter is he's so MCU centric. It's like all his films are so MCU centric, and this would again be using Spider-Man in service of the MCU. It's like using Spider-Man, their most popular character, to introduce the X-Men into the MCU. It's like not telling a Spider-Man story. It's using Spider-Man to introduce these new characters into this universe. And so that would be a little bit disappointing, but yeah, it's funny. I have some buddies who do a podcast too. And one of my friends, Nico Caruso, over at the Vigilante 39 podcast that I was listening to, he was talking about, he said if he were to put, so they went through all the different choices. Could it be Gwen Stacy? Could it be Felicia Hardy? That's another another Black casting. Cat. Yeah, Black Cat. Could it be one of those characters? And Nico was like, you know what? If I put money on it, I would put it on Jean Grey, just because of all the smoke around it,
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it, and I was like, Oh man, I kind of agree. Like, I don't know why. And like, there's so much, the rumors too are just like so persistent and fast. It's like Harris, that guy Harris, is it Harris or Harrison Dixon, that actor being rumored for Cyclops. Kirsten Dunst's husband, Jesse Plemons, being a rumored candidate for Beast. Which sounds right to me, to be honest. Like, I mean, that sounds like a great casting that they would do for an MCU X-Men movie. Even though he always usually plays psychopaths, I think that he would actually be a great Beast. And so, you know, I think that there's just a lot of smoke here. So it would be interesting to see if there's any fire, but yeah, I agree with you. I think it would be kind of a bummer in a sense, but I do like the poetry for the MCU as a whole. It's like Spider-Man was introduced in what was ostensibly Avengers movie in Captain America Civil War. So the Avengers bring Spider-Man into the MCU. And so now Spider-Man brings the X-Men into the MCU is kind of an interesting poetry of it all. Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see, man. Again, I think it all comes down to what Sony's capable of doing and gets away with.
Yeah. Sony is, I wouldn't put anything past Sony with their recent strings of failures of trying to get their own Spider-Man movies going, you know?
By the way, I just want to say that I won't say I watched it because I basically skimmed through and fast forwarded through like 80% of the movie, but I watched the last Venom. Not that we need to spend much time talking about it, but my God, what a terrible movie.
I haven't even bothered. I've never seen Madam Web. I didn't bother.
I don't think I'll watch that.
I didn't bother with Craven or with any of those films. I didn't even watch. So my brother, it was funny because I was like on the fence about Joker 2. And my brother called me and he's like, because he expected that I'd seen it, you know? And he's like, have you seen Joker 2? And I'm like, no. And he's like, oh, I won't spoil it then. And I'm like, bro, honestly, I can tell by the sound in your voice, it's probably not very good. I'm probably not going to go see it. So you can tell me. And he told me the plot and I'm like, yeah, I'm so glad I did not waste my time watching that movie.
Yeah. I mean, especially Joker too. That was no.
Yeah. Did you see it?
No, God, no.
There's just so many things out, you know. I want to like fill my time with things that are actually good. So anyway, all of that to say, Sadie Sink in Spider-Man 4, we'll see who she's playing. Very good casting, though. I think we both agree. Great casting. She could play a variety of characters and do it justice. So I think we're both looking forward to seeing Sadie Sink. Here's another interesting thing. I know we're spending a lot of time on this topic, but there's just another facet of this. Somebody mentioned, I forget which podcast I was listening to, but they were talking about how it could be really interesting to see Zendaya in a smaller part in Spider-Man 4 with a different love interest and then sort of bring her back towards the end. You know, like absence makes the heart grow fonder. What do you think of that idea? I don't think Sony would do that just because Zendaya is such a huge star. And, you know, there's so much rooting for Tom Holland and Zendaya. I think she's probably going to have a big part, but it is an interesting idea.
I don't think it'll happen. I think they probably want to do a bunch of dumb ideas. Not that is one, but like I think they want to do a bunch of things. And, you know, this might be a good segue, but like I think right now we're in a world where MCU characters that are well received and loved have way more power than they used to. We can talk a little bit more about what I mean when it comes to Daredevil Born Again, but like I think the actors like Tom Holland, right? The actors like obviously John Bernthal, who we can talk about that. Like I think they understand they have more power now than they ever have.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, why don't we get right into it? So right before we started recording, we watched Daredevil, the 4th episode of Daredevil Born Again. So we'll get it was a great episode, and the last 2 episodes have been fantastic. So I'll just say that right off the top of the board. But you sent me a really interesting article right before we started watching the episode about how Jon Bernthal basically revealed that with the direction the show was going in previously, he wasn't interested in reprising his role as Frank Castle, aka the Punisher, in the series. And then once they revamped the show and kind of incorporated more elements from the previous seasons, he decided to return when they revamped it. So, Evan, do you want to why don't you just give us your thoughts on that and give us what you think about all of that?
Yeah. So, I mean, Jon Bernthal is the perfect Punisher. I think he is everything that you need in the Punisher. He understands the character. I think we're getting, now the MCU has been around for so long that we're really getting actors that truly understand the character, right? Patrick Stewart understood Professor X, right? Hugh Jackman understood Wolverine. And I think Jon Bernthal and Charlie Cox understand their respective characters. But even more so, Jon Bernthal seems to have this deep passion and respect for what it is. And so, I think there was clearly some bad ideas in the beginning. We saw that they had reshoots, they had rewrites, a lot was going on. But Jon Bernthal said it as much. He was like, the product that they sent in the beginning, I said absolutely the hell not, and I walked away. And it wasn't until they brought this back, and then again, when you look at these first couple episodes, when you look at the episode that happened tonight, that just to me comes across as Jon was very heavily involved in the Punisher story. The speech he had tonight, the monologue, talking about his kid, some of the best acting I think the MCU has ever seen in any movie happened tonight in Daredevil between Charlie Cox and Jon Bernthal.
Yeah.
And hey, let's not forget also Vincent D'Onofrio played an incredible mirror to Daredevil tonight as well. But literally, it just really seems like Jon Bernthal was like, nah, we're shutting this down. We're going to do it the right way. And I think that's what the MCU needs right now. The MCU needs to be faithful to the material, faithful to the fans. It needs to be ignoring every single thing that an executive producer asks for or wants. If it's coming from a producer, if it's coming from the studio, we should just automatically assume it's a terrible idea. And I think Jon Bernthal gets that.
Yeah, no, I think that there's no question. Jon Bernthal's he's co-writing the Punisher special they're doing for Disney Plus coming up. So he clearly knows this character. He clearly loves this character, and he plays this character so well. I've thought that since the 2nd season of the original Daredevil series, where he was basically the antagonist of that season, and just did an incredible job and really understood. I haven't watched the original Punisher Netflix series, which I want to go back and watch because I've heard it's really good. I've heard it's excellent. But so I'm excited to see that Disney Plus special for Punisher. And I'm glad that they brought Jon Bernthal back because I agree with you. I think that he's terrific. And he's, he understands the character, and it would be very easy to make Frank Castle a cartoon, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the whole the sort of Punisher cult subplot of Daredevil Born Again, this first season of Daredevil Born Again, is kind of the cartoonish version of Punisher, right? It's very, the ironic thing is it's these cops that are anti-vigilante, and yet they're kind of doing acts outside the law in, using symbols of the Punisher to do it, which is this, hypocrisy and dichotomy of that. But their actions are the cartoonish version of Punisher, the lazy version of Punisher. John Bernthal is crafting a picture of a man who is broken, who's this like vigilante, but has layers to him, you know. And I think that it's just such a great performance, and I agree with you on Charlie Cox too. I mean, Charlie Cox is equally just so understanding of his character.
100%.
Yeah, yeah.
So get better.
Oh yeah, totally. Well, let's talk about episodes 3 and 4. So in episode 3, we have the Matt Murdock, the lawyer, on full display, which in the original series was some of the best material in the original series as well. The courtroom drama has always been really interesting around Daredevil. It's great in the comics too, and there are different tones with it. Some writers play it very dark. Other writers, like who was it? Matt Fraction. I think Matt Fraction did a Daredevil series, and it was very lighthearted and kind of swashbuckling, and fun. So there's an element of that too, with how they've portrayed Daredevil. But obviously, we're going the more Frank Miller, darker version of this character. And I thought the episode 3 was probably the strongest episode of the 4 episodes that we've seen so far. I think episode 4 had more powerful scenes. I think the scene between Frank Castle and Matt Murdock is probably some of the best acting that we've seen so far in the series. Mm-hmm. But I would say episode 3 narratively and pacing and storytelling wise was probably the strongest episode of the series so far. But what did you think, Evan?
I mean, I don't know. This episode 4 was a heavy hitter for me. To go from that scene with Punisher and Daredevil, and then just following right into the duality of Daredevil and Wilson Fisk kind of going back to their old nature and like letting their emotions get the best of them in their own different ways. Like, I don't know if you caught that, but did you know who the guy was in the cell? Spoilers?
Yeah, so spoiler alert, we're going to discuss spoilers. It was the guy who he cheated. Right. The guy who cheated with Vanessa was in the cell. Yeah, Adam.
Yeah, and so I mean, like, when Wilson Fisk says, "When I was a boy," something bad's gonna happen. So I loved that. I do think that was like narratively, like it was a really strong approach to ending this, the episode, and then of course flinging the weapon. I don't even know what it's called. The chain.
The coolest weapon in all of comics, man. Honestly, like visually, it's such a cool weapon.
I mean, that was just incredible. But the third episode, especially all the lawyer courtroom drama stuff, I think is really fantastic because it's a courtroom drama in itself, and they're writing it well, it's acting well, but I love the little like details of how Daredevil uses his powers in those moments, whether it's knowing whether or not someone's lying, whether it's hearing what someone's saying in the background to get a little, whatever it is, like it's such a like integral part of like Daredevil. Mm-hmm. So, naturally I love that. Not just the episode 3, but also in the courtroom in episode 4 when he's negotiating this criminal, who we haven't even touched on yet, but like the monologue from the criminal in episode 4 talking about like what it's like to be in the system and how hard it is to get out and all of these things, like that was incredible writing too. Yeah. And then when he's sitting there negotiating with who I think was like a city lawyer, like a public defendant, and like not whatever,
a prosecutor,
prosecutor, yeah, and like the charm that Daredevil and Matt Murdock has in the moment, and the
guy has so much riz, man. Charlie Cox, he's like oozing with riz. That guy,
up to 11, and like that was such a great. Again, I am. And just couldn't be happier right now when it comes to what I'm seeing with Daredevil Born Again. It's just giving you everything you want in such a well-written, well-acted, well-directed manner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I loved all of it too. And it's funny, I think so. I heard some scuttlebutt behind the scenes that um Daredevil's this was originally conceived as an 18 episode
Right.
like first season. And my understanding is that in the original incarnation of this show, we weren't going to see Daredevil for a very long time into the season. It was going to be several episodes in. And Kevin Feige watched it and apparently wasn't like displeased with the product. Apparently episodes 2 and 3 are pretty much intact from the original
they were
from the
episodes 1 and 2 basically.
Yeah, they were episodes 1 and 2 basically. But he was like, "Yo, we can't do a Daredevil show and not show Daredevil until like the third act of season 1, you know? We're going too long." So that's when they incorporated the first episode where they do the flashback and have that incredible fight scene and all that sort of thing. But I got to tell you, Evan, I didn't miss costume Daredevil in these 2 episodes at all because of the strength of Charlie Cox's performance as Matt Murdock outside of the costume.
And not only that, but it's like he's conveying like the struggle and the internal fighting that he's having with himself about like going back to Daredevil, like going back to that. Like, you know, obviously losing Foggy, he doesn't want to go back to that. He wants to remove that anger and that like frustration and all of that hate. Because, you know, again, it kind of led him to losing Foggy. But, you know, nature is nature, and he's going back to it. So
oh yeah, you can't escape your nature. That was that end scene.
Right.
That's what that was conveying, is you can't escape your nature ultimately. And Daredevil and Kingpin are part of who these 2 characters are. And they're inextricably linked to each other too. You know, so I don't think we're going to see them separated for too much longer. But yeah, it was really cool. I also loved how you saw, like, you opened it up, you saw the cows, you saw the black cow, you saw the yellow cow. You know, kind of his whole arsenal of like Daredevil things. That was really cool too. And apparently all that stuff is new. All of that stuff was added into the show. So we're getting a shorter first season, which thank God, because anything past 10 episodes, I get a little bit like, ugh, like even 13 episode Netflix shows, you know, I'm like, oh my gosh, 13 episodes, here we go. But yeah, we're getting a shorter season, and we're going to see Daredevil much earlier, which I think is needed.
Completely agree.
Yeah. So yeah, man. Interesting stuff too with Fisk and Vanessa in episode 4. The whole conversation around their relationship. I'm so glad we got the original Vanessa Fisk back and they didn't replace her, because she's so good in that role.
Yeah. Also, it's just like what were these people doing at the beginning phases of writing out Daredevil? Like,
yeah.
No, let's not see Daredevil for 8 episodes. We're not bringing back Matt, Foggy and Karen. We're not bringing back Wilson Fisk's actor wife. Like,
yeah,
like those. This is the thing that drives me insane when you hear these stories about Hollywood. It's not like they're taking a bunch of risks or they're making these big choices and they're just bad. They're doing things that if you ask any fan, they would not only say this is a terrible idea, but they would just be confused at how you even got to that decision. How do you get to the decision? Oh yeah, we don't need that actor anymore. She did really well. Everyone liked her. We should get rid of her. Oh, we don't need Foggy. And I'm still pissed that they killed Foggy. But, like, it just, again, I don't know how. I mean, because even at the end of the day, an executive, their job is to make it make money. A producer's job is to make it make money and be successful. So it's like, even if they're idiots, like, where's the shred of logic to go, that will make the movie make less money or the TV show not get as good of ratings? Like I don't understand it.
Yeah, and it's it's interesting, and we can talk a little bit about this too further as well. But the ratings for this show are softer. It's not getting as much viewership as I think Disney would like it to get. I think part of that, honestly, is the product brand fit. It's a very hard R-rated show with violence, and there's a Disney logo that pops up at the beginning of the show. So it might be a little like discordant based on the platform that it's on. That's not to say that that's the reason for it, because obviously Deadpool and Wolverine, I'm assuming Deadpool and Wolverine did very well on Disney Plus. But there's, I think the original show was on Netflix, and so it was, there was a little bit more brand congruence there, between the two properties. The other thing too is it is a Marvel superhero show that for the last 3 episodes we've seen very little of the titular superhero. We've had Daredevil for one scene, one incredible scene, but we've had Daredevil for one scene, and so I think that goes to your point of, creatively, narratively, is it interesting that we're spending a lot of time with Matt outside of the Daredevil suit? Right. Yes, that is interesting. But is that the most commercially viable thing to do? I would argue probably not. And I would argue that I would assume that with Daredevil Born Again season 2, we're probably going to get a lot more Daredevil in the next season is my assumption.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Why do you think ratings are soft? I'd be interested to hear your thoughts about that, Evan.
Because at any given moment, you can turn your phone on and get a million different forms of entertainment. I mean, like I'm the best example. I am your perfect example. I love Daredevil Born Again. And I'm checking my phone 17 times a minute.
Oh yeah.
I'm so addicted to my phone that it's impossible not to. And I think the world is just so now like locked in with how much there is on TikTok and how many different forms of entertainment and different things and all of these things. So when you mix that with like a combination of like the MCU and like these types of properties have been going for a long time, it's hard to continuously hit over and over again. It's just a combination. Plus the world's on fire.
Oh yeah. You had a tweet that I felt seen when I read that tweet. About Severance, because I'm struggling with the same thing that you are. I like the show a lot. I think it's beautifully shot, but I'm looking at my phone so much that I miss stuff in that show all the time. So I'll be like playing the episode. I'm kind of like half aware of what's going on in the show because I'm missing things because I'm not like fully engaged with it, and I feel somewhat outside of the zeitgeist with that show a little bit. Like I'm catching up. I'm on episode 4 of the 2nd season, and it's a hard show for me to pay attention to during. And I think there's an Daredevil Born Again's easier for me to pay attention to because I think I'm a comic book fan. I like these characters. I'm a little bit more invested in the property itself. But yeah, there might be an element of that with Daredevil Born Again a little bit, So
I was kind of like skeptic going into the show, and then especially the first episode, it was like such a huge swing. But this last 2 episodes, it's just like
they've knocked it out of the park.
I'm very locked in.
Yep. I know. So it's like the that's what I think makes White Lotus so brilliant, because it's so like everything's a shock in that show. It like holds your attention, It's like, whoa, what the heck, I love the Walter Goggins meme from this week. That's all the Walton Goggins face. That's already become a meme. Yeah. So yeah, man. But yeah, Daredevil Born Again. Great show so far. I think we're both really enjoying it. And we're excited. I think we're both excited to see where it goes. Yeah. Really quick, we can touch on this quickly because I think that there's not a whole lot that we could say about it. I could say a couple of things of what I'm hoping to see from the film itself. But this week, another little bit of casting news over on the DC side is that Colin Farrell is going to be playing Sergeant Rock in Luca. I don't know how to say his last name. The guy who did Challengers. His Sergeant Rock film. We've already seen Sergeant Rock in the DCU. He was in Creature Commandos with the backstory of G.I. Robot. I'm actually really excited. I'm more excited about the prospect of seeing G.I. Robot in live action fight Nazis in a Sergeant Rock movie than I am about Sergeant Rock himself. I think that could potentially be really cool. But what do you think of the Colin Farrell casting, and what do you think of the idea of doing a mid-budget war film as one of the entries into the DCU?
I don't understand why they got to do Colin Farrell. I mean, I really don't. Like, I mean, I get like if you're gonna do it, like, yeah. I mean, he's so different in how he looks as Penguin. I wonder if it's like almost just like it's like a payback. It's like, hey, sorry for all the makeup you had to put on for Penguin.
Yeah,
like, let's give you this. I don't know. I mean, like, I'm sure he'll do good. He's a fantastic actor. I don't know if I need a DC war movie, but I do trust James Gunn, so we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with you. I'm like, shouldn't we be establishing kind of the main characters first? You know, shouldn't we get a DCU Batman movie before we get a Sergeant Rock movie or a Clayface movie?
Or a Creature Commando TV show.
Or a Creature Commandos TV show, or, you know. Yeah. But I think that I agree with you. I trust James Gunn. I think that he really knows what he's doing. I'm relieved to hear that they're not greenlighting stuff unless it's a well-written script. Right. What's really interesting is that a lot of the MCU movies start filming before a script is done. They'll like be in the middle of rewrites for a script and they'll start filming movies. So they're very regimented in schedule. And I think the danger for DC is they could potentially be in a place where, where they're like, they're not approving films fast enough or greenlighting films fast enough because they're getting too in the minutia of, could the script be a little bit better? Or could we do this? Could we do that? You know? Yeah. But yeah, I'm relieved to hear though that storytelling's at the forefront of DC, because that's Pixar's another studio, I think, where storytelling's at the forefront of that studio as well. So yeah, like if a Sergeant Rock film has a great script and they've got a really talented filmmaker in Luca, like, why not do it? And you've got Colin Farrell, who's willing to star in it, a cool supporting character that you've introduced in G.I. Robot. Cool. Like, let's see it, let's see what you can do with it. But yeah, it is interesting that they're doing this before they're doing their big characters.
We just need Superman. Like, I think everything would be okay if we just get Superman.
That's the we need Superman to be a hit. That's what everybody's saying. They're saying once Superman's a hit, the floodgates open. I think it's announced James Gunn is one of the writers on the Batman DCU Batman movie. Surprise. Yeah, it won't be a surprise at all. I wouldn't be shocked if that's the film he directs next too, it's so, they're not going to give Batman to a guy who made The Flash, which was a failure for the studio. They're not going to do that. So I won't at all be shocked if James Gunn is the eventual director of Batman. And I think you're right. We need Superman to come out. So yeah, man.
Completely agree.
Yeah. Well, I think we've, shorter show today, but we discussed the Daredevil episodes and a couple of big casting notes, and yeah, man, we'll come back next week, see what happens this week on the web, but at the very least, we will have a mini review of Daredevil Born Again season 5, or wait, episode 5. Daredevil Born Again season 1 episode 5.
I mean, shorter show, but my God, I covered what I wanted to cover. What a great episode tonight.
Oh yeah, man. Awesome. Great episodes, and looking forward to more of the shows we go. So yeah, cool. Well, you can follow our X account at supersecrethq_. Follow us on TikTok. Make sure you like and subscribe on the YouTube channel. If you like the show, you can get fresh episodes as we upload them, record them, and upload them. And yeah, we'll see you next week.
All right. Later, man.
Later.
What's up?
Hey, man.
That was great.
It was great. And shorter show, but I think it was solid.
There were plenty of clips for TikTok that will all be good.
Oh, yeah, for sure.